Hello, Sarah, meet your husband, the guy that I attempted to talk about Song of the South with,
hmm hmm
but at first he couldn't come, but then all of a sudden I got him one-on-one with
hmm
just him, and he seemed a nice guy. You'll probably find him pretty nice too. And the only reason why I wanted him for Song of the South is to talk
Yeah,
about.
yeah, I get it, Jordan.
Yeah, but today's film is is a different kind of problem, a financial and creative problem for Disney, because this film flopped at the box office. And Ron, I can recall that you worked on the Black Cauldron from 1985. You were like the first Disney animator to be like a black guy or something.
Yeah, yeah. 1985 takes way back. But yeah, I worked on that crew doing the Cauldron. Yeah.
Oh yeah, so obviously we're going to take our little idea of Disney, about what we perceive as Disney, and to take our we'll take them into the doctor's room, into a patient's room, and diagnose exactly what went wrong with the Black Cauldron. Now, I think the first problem, Ron, is that the idea itself. You are adapting the Chronicles of Prydain, 5 books from a guy named Lloyd Alexander, I believe, um, into one 80-minute or 80 something minute movie. And to the studio, you might feel like you're just making something unique or creative, but to a general audience, it probably just felt like you would cash in on the dark fantasy trend. But during that time, a lot of people were creating dark fantasy films. It was like a craze back then. Cruel, The Neverending Story, Legend, Labyrinth, The Dark
Yeah, what
Crystal.
about that? Yeah, I was gonna guess Dark Crystal Main around that time too.
Oh yeah, this is definitely within that subcategory, and it almost just feels as though Disney is, well, they're trying to do Lord of the Rings, but it doesn't have that same oomph that Tolkien has. Like Lord of the
Mhm.
Rings.
Well, yeah. I think you sort of hit it on the head when um, you mentioned the Lloyd Alexander children's books was very popular at the time. It's award-winning children's books, and it was five of them in that series. And and the problem of trying to harness 5 stories into one story. It was a very complicated situation from the very beginning. I read before doing the animation on it. I read the books, and again, it's very complicated story to try to boil all that content down to one story. Um, but you never know. We're looking back on history. We're looking back. We're passing judgment. We're kicking cans and kicking stones and saying how bad the Cauldron was. But you don't go into it with that mindset. When you make a picture, I mean, you picture short. A feature, live action, animation, you don't know what the audience is going to expect. You don't know what the audience is going to react to. And you go into it, and you put everything you have into it, you put your heart and soul into it as much as you can, and you just don't know the outcome. Like I said, we're looking from the far side, looking back on history, but going into the picture, it's full speed ahead. You don't go in making a picture thinking you're gonna make a dud. You know, you go into a picture doing the best you can with the people you have, And the story was extremely complicated. There was a lot of problems along the way. And it ended up being over budgeted and over the time limit that was set for it. There was a lot of things. It was like the perfect storm of things going wrong. Um, during the course of the picture, we had directors who uh, left the project. Um, Director I was working with, Art Stevens, he went home over the weekend and never came back, and the whole sequence that he was directing came to a standstill, and we had another directors come in to fix it up and pilot that and jettison the whole storyline that it was going. There was a sequence where Taryn and Gergie and Alan we go into the Fairfolk land, and they had a whole sequence of the Fairfolk. Uh, King Idlig, they had a king. Their whole kingdom is sort of looking up from their point of view because they were little fairy people, um, and a lot of work, a lot of things went into that, and then it just got jettisoned and going to a different direction because anything in story wise, if it doesn't um, if it doesn't advance the characters, if it doesn't advance the storyline, then it's expendable. And so that was one of the story points that was expendable because it took them off their quest for the cauldron itself into a sidetrack into the land of the fairies, which worked in the books, but it didn't work story wise, and so it was expendable. So there's a lot of things that sort of happened, but again, it did turn out not to be very, very accepted by the public. But going into it, you just never know,
Yeah.
how things are going to turn out on the far end. Because I mean, even at the end, we had a fantastic rap party, and Chase's was like the um, restaurant in during that time in Hollywood, and we had a rap party at Chasen's in the parking lot. They had Tinder, they were looking for big things out of the movie, but it just didn't turn out to be a very popular movie. But again, it was entered into with the best of intentions, but again, things just didn't turn out that way.
Yeah, I know. There, I can also name a couple of things that went wrong. So one of them being, instead of your usual composers like Buddy Baker or Owen Costal or any of these in-house composers Disney has worked with for years and years and had a trusted relationship with. Instead, you have music from none other than Oscar winner Elmer Bernstein, who really hit it big once he did the music for Cecil B. DeMille's The Ten Commandments, but really got to start doing music for B movies like Robot Monster with the Automatic Billion Bubble Machine, Bronson Canyon, and The Romance.
Yeah. What was wrong with having like a fresh composer to do the score?
I don't really know, but I think I think it might have just drove the budget up because it wasn't the usual people that they were working with. And then there was also another thing. There was also two more things I could get on. One's pretty important to our story, and another is also pretty important. So let's get down to the first bit. Another red flag here is suddenly going back to Super Technorama 70 widescreen format just to make an immersive level of experience, as if you were trying to compete in some way with the Star Wars or some of the blockbusters that were coming out at the time, and all of a sudden that's gonna amp up the budget real big because you're working with a large format. That is always gonna be a problem. Made even more bit crazy as a problem, because that widescreen format isn't only going to work so well once you consider something that was really gaining popularity at the time, that was really going to benefit Disney. And it's 3 words: VHS.
Yeah, Jordan, hasn't the television screens gotten a bit wider in recent years?
Yeah, but at the time it was like a 4:3, not 16:9. So you gotta take it to context that in 1985, TV screens were usually 4:3 and not 16:9. And so at the time, Ron Miller thought he could put some a select number of Disney movies on home video. But then something would happen that they would be like, hey, you know what? Let's try something here. Let's see what happens when we put the thing that we just re-released, Pinocchio, out on home video. And they tried it out, and it just went off like crazy. And they pretty much had an idea for, and it actually made a lot of money. And they actually had an incentive for you to try to get these movies into your homes. Well, this is called the Disney Vault. What they did was, back then, most people rented movies from video stores and video rental centers and convenience stores and others, grocery stores, other places, through video memberships and such, like stuff like that. But then Disney was like, you know what? We need to get people to keep these animated movies on their home video shelves. So they kind of offer them in discount department stores and discount stores, and say, hey, get this movie before it goes back to the Disney Vault. You'll probably regret it. And it was probably like a fear of missing out. So
Yeah, I've seen that before in the DVD commercials.
yeah, they did this constantly throughout the rest of until like 2019. And I don't really think the Black Cauldron would be suitable for a VHS format, unless of course you utilize the pan and scan format, in which you're trying to focus on the most important part of the frame, which whereas widescreen you get the full picture. But
And
now
wouldn't they
with
do like the same thing for Sleeping Beauty?
yeah, but now with the 16:9 televisions, you can get the full picture. I don't know how you feel about that, Ron, when you realize that VHS was also a big thing, but there was also something else. Disney was about to experience a regime change. As a matter of fact, the company making the movies and stuff, it now had a new name: Walt Disney Pictures.
Yeah,
And
it's
it
true. We
also,
saw the superimposed title for the movie we watched.
yep. And it was a signal to say, we're now gonna be ready to play with some of the major leagues in Hollywood. But then and let me tell you, whenever that blue castle logo came up on my TV screen when I was a kid, you knew something awesome was gonna happen. Follow it. And it just brings me warm memories just to see that Disney castle logo. Well, the blue castle logo from the childhood and stuff. And this is the first film to use it. It was also the first film, believe it or not, to suddenly be using CGI. And it was for one measly little boat at the end of the movie where they're trying to escape out of the Horn King's castle.
Yeah, you got a problem with experimental animation?
Not really, but it seemed like they were trying to inch its way to something bigger. But regardless, they were trying some new territory. It just shot up. But the big thing was that a regime change was about to undergo at the studio. In 1984, some guy named Saul Steinberg thought he could buy Disney and then break it up for pieces and then sell it for a profit. And the Disney board was like, no, we ain't gonna let that happen. So we're gonna have to try a couple things. We're gonna try for the first time in our history, we're gonna turn to outside help. So they turned to Warner Brothers executive Frank Wells to be the CFO, and Paramount executive Michael Eisner to be the CEO. And for the feature film division, Michael Eisner enlisted his buddy from Paramount, Jeffrey Katzenberg, to run the feature films at Disney. And Jeffrey Katzenberg had this film to contend with because it was like it seemed like it was a problem for him, this animation department, because the budget on this Black Cauldron thing was getting big, and it definitely showed. I mean, 70 millimeters and live action effects, and he even saw that the movie was pretty dark, and it almost got an R rating, if you can recall that. The Army of
like
the
3
Dead.
ratings at the time. Yeah, I heard
Yeah, the Army
anyway.
of
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't think that's anything new. I mean, weren't you and Julia complaining about the Dr. X of the original Pinocchio tale?
Yeah, for the last meeting, but seems as though this film almost got an R rating, but this is the first movie to get a PG in the Disney anime canon. Yet it almost got an R because the Army of the Dead sequence that the Horn King was gonna bring about, it was gonna be a little more gruesome, to try almost like a devouring of the dead of the living and stuff, and it's gonna be wild. But Jeffrey Katzenberg was like, no, I'm gonna edit this out. I'm gonna take this to an edit booth. I'm gonna show you how I'm supposed to edit this animated film, even though they argued you couldn't edit animated films for some reason. But then with an R rating, you could drop all the F-bombs you want. But this is Disney. This is a fantasy adventure. This is like a Lord of the Rings. I mean, you can't like
Okay, bye, Jordan, can we please continue?
Well, in the Disney film, you can't drop bad word
Jordan,
number 11.
Jordan, I meant continuing the story, not continuing your rantings.
Well, I know. Well, originally, Jeffrey Katzenberg was really intent on resurrecting Disney, and there was a big culture clash, even though because some of the younger animators, like Ron, husband, who somehow got booted out of this meeting, I guess he and some of the other guys wanted to inject some fresh energy, but some of the older people didn't think they wanted to have that kind of fresh energy into this uniqueness of how they wanted to play with the characters and the animation and such.
But all the 9 old men were pretty much retired. I mean,
I know.
then the company had to rely on the first takes of the creatives.
Yeah, as best as they could, but some of the poison from the old management was still intact. I guess
Which old management again? I wasn't paying attention.
the old management from the Ron Miller days when Ron Miller was executive producing these films. Even this is like the last animated feature that Ron Miller would executive produce, and this was just one of those moments where they couldn't where it didn't work out for them because Jeffrey Katzenberg was like, hey, we need to wake up Sleeping Beauty at this studio. And apparently the guys who thought were like, hey, who the heck are these people? Sleeping Beauty is awake. But those guys, they just got canned and booted out the door. And
Yeah, I've been meaning to ask Jordan, and especially that was the question I wanted to ask around husband as well. I mean, yeah, with such a perfect storm and that they had with the film tanking. I mean, yeah. And there was also like, the culture of America and seeing cartoons as like, kiddie stuff. I mean, yeah,
oh
once our
yeah.
cultural rules been established, it'd be hard to be taken away. I mean, that's why we still have racism in this country. I mean, you think with the current cultures of the dark periods of theatrical animation, you think Disney Company would have had every right to shut down its animation branch like all the other companies. Why didn't they?
Well, you know what? I can actually answer that question. There was one guy that stood in their way. Roy E. Disney. And if that name sounds familiar, he is Walt Disney's nephew. He was Walt Disney's nephew and the son of Roy Disney, the guy who was always trying to drum up some money.
Yeah. He was like the practical money guy of the two brothers.
Yeah. So Roy, by this point, he now comes to know that animation is an accepted part of this business, and when he kind of thought that the executives were considering trying to ditch the animation department, he was like, nope, never gonna happen, bro. And his argument is the one thing that's really consistent that really brings new ideas is the in the film business, and out of the film business you get new ideas, and some of these people thought that they could just shut down the film business and just
Let them run
release
like
it
that
and,
chicken losing its head, or however that analogy goes.
oh no, he thought gradually release it and try to keep things on a situation where they just recycle and rehash things, but Roy Disney was like, if you really think that way, what you're doing is you're running a museum. So he fought tooth and nail just to keep the animation biz in good straits. Apparently because he believed that in this vision strongly. I don't know how you verbally fight someone just to keep something intact, because
Contracts.
because when I think fight, I just think like that, like but Rocky or video game style fighting, like
I don't think it's
pow,
like kind
bam.
of physical altercations that you're believing about that. Yeah, there was like this one interesting painting I saw at Texas Museum that was done by like a native Comanche. I mean, he had like this own interesting parody about like you have like this typical native chief with the headdress, but he also has like the modern suits that you would see with the lawyers, and that was like his way of representing about the lawyers of today not being out in the field, but up in the courts to help protect their people.
Yeah, well, that's a hard way. That's one challenge to fight in the verbally, but my sister-in-law Julia knows how to do that. As for what you were saying about animation suddenly being considered the kiddie stuff at the time, it just pretty much showed with this film. By by the Black
Yeah,
Cauldron.
yeah. I mean, there was like, a lot more story development that was going for like the TV series and then, like, the Transformers and G.I. Joe.
Yeah, the Saturday morning cartoons that Russell really likes. And as a result, well, Black Cauldron cost like $44 million, like 11 times the amount of the budget of the last movie, The Fox and the Hound. And just to make, and it just made less than half of that. Just to give you an idea of just how the American public really seemed to think animation was just a kiddie thing. You know what ended up being Black Cauldron? You know what ended up becoming the highest grossing animated movie at this particular point in time? The Care Bears movie.
Yeah, like I said, there was like a lot more, toy based, and TV based series that was having like a more creative storytelling then.
Well, the craze of the Reagan years really of the consumerism of the Reagan years really started to set in, and so for some reason Disney thought it did well. What Disney did, it didn't really axe the animation department. Well, but instead, when the live action business was booming, Jeffrey Katzenberg decided, you know what, I'm gonna need some space just to get a couple of people in tune for this booming live action business. I'm gonna have to have the animation building. And the animator was like, "What? Are you kidding me? Why? This is a historic building. Why are you doing this to us?" Apparently, this wasn't. They didn't really have much of a choice. So they were booted out of the animation building, and then taken to this place in Glendale, where I actually been to that particular place in Glendale, which is now the Disney Archives, and it got a little crazy, but I think there must have been a running scare at the time. They kind of thought they would just
Yeah, like I said, I mean, it looked like they were being axed out when they really weren't.
Yeah, so they try to ride out whatever they could, but and they seem to think, well, I guess some of them were like, well, if this is like the beginning of the end, oh wait, Ron Husband's back. Oh, hi, Ron. What went wrong?
I have some health issues. I just had to log off for a minute.
Oh man,
Going
health issues.
back
I
to
know that
act up a bit.
sucks.
Sorry.
Yeah, I've got some family members going through some health issues too. I mean, I'm more distant, but we will be heading up to Indiana soon.
Sorry, I was trying to give too much talking. I was trying to relay the story over to Sarah about how Saul Steinberg wanted to buy the company and break it up, and how Disney board of directors turned to outside help, and they got Michael Eisner and Frank Wells to run the company, and Michael Eisner got Jeffrey Katzenberg to run the feature film division of Disney, and how Jeffrey Katzenberg wanted to edit a couple of things out of this Black Cauldron film, which was rather dark and grisly. Like some of the film material edited out was rather dark and stuff. And I was also telling her how this film, on a $44 million budget, it just made less than half of that. And
Yeah. Basically, the story was tanking, and the amazing department was being moved out of the main building in Burbank. I mean, were you there at that time when it was happening?
yeah, so
Yeah. Go ahead, Jordan.
well, I was also telling Sarah that this movie, the highest grossing movie at that particular point in time was the Care Bears movie. I mean, look at this. This is like a green card turned into a toy, turned into a cartoon or anime film. and this is the rise of the wild consumerism of what the 1980s were coming to at that
Yeah, it
particular
may have been like with the
time.
deregulations that was going on with like the TV channels at the time as well.
Reagan years, that's what we're talking about here. So it seemed as though it seemed as though you might have been running scared if you ended up getting kicked out of the animation building and then somebody put into this
Jordan, don't jump into conclusions if you're asking a question.
uh well, how did you even feel about this during this particular time?
Well, you're a professional, right? You're a professional artist. You go to work every day to get paid for doing a job. And people's and basically for me, I can't speak for the whole animation department, but for me, um, Cauldron came in at a time when I was working, um, and doing some very creative things, animation wise, for myself as a young artist, a young animator, coming from a background of not having any animation experience whatsoever, and getting into a place like Disney where your creativity, your creative juices are continually running. You're around very creative people who are doing their creativity, their jobs to the best of their abilities, and and being put off the lot. There's people who come through in animation who have loved animation all their lives. They see a picture at 2 or 3 years old, 4 or 5 or 6, and they just love Disney animation. They want to be a Disney animator, and they're working towards those goals. And they have a vast history of the Disney product and what Disney has done in the past. I came in, I had none of that experience whatsoever. And every day for me was a learning experience, creativity. I went to Disney in 1975. I had no idea what an animator was, what an animator did. I had no background of animation. I had no aspirations of literally being an animator. I just want to be in a situation where I could be more creative than the job that I had out of college for the last couple of years. Coming out of college, wasn't creative at all, and so now I got in a situation, and the experience at Disney was just great for me. And to have to move off the lot, I had veteran animators tell me, it doesn't matter where you animate. You be out in the parking lot, you got a desk and some animation paper and a pencil, you animate. The environment shouldn't affect what comes out of your inner self and in the end of your pencil and all the knowledge you have to animate. It doesn't matter. So when we were put off the lot, it was just another step, because you still went to work every day, whether or not you're on the lot or whether you're not in one of those converted warehouses that we were on in
Or you'd
Glendale.
be like working at home in recent years.
No, I mean regardless of where you work, you still have a job to do. You get a scene handed to you. You go over with the director. So none of that changes. It's just the location changes, and you didn't see me walking around all bent out of shape and in a funk. It was just a part of just what was happening at the time. You just roll with the punches. It was not the younger guys. The older guys had Frank Milt, Ollie Johnson, the older animators. They had pretty much gone on and retired, and so it was in the hands of the younger generation of animators, and surely they were getting ready to shut down animation, were it not for say the likes of Bernie Madison and Roy Disney, who lobbied for animation to be able to continue. And but if it was going to continue, it was going to continue off the lot because it wasn't making money. Nothing was, revenues weren't coming in.
Yeah, Jordan. I mean, it wasn't just blaming the one guy pushing them out. I mean, it's a yeah, it comedy is a complicated number of reasons.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was complicated in a sense, but again, they wanted to make room for what they felt was going to be a moneymaker, which was television and movies. And so, where were they going to get the space to bring in people to do and write for television and the movies, where they thought that the money was going to be coming in from revenue? And so they put us off the lot with, if you guys can function out there and you can do a picture in half the time, 3 or 4 years doing a picture, you can do it in half the time or less, then maybe we'll think about continuing animation as a part of the Disney studio. So we went off a lot, and we worked, and like I said, as young people, as young animators, for the most part, we were um, doing our jobs and doing the best we could. And again, it got an opportunity for us to play in the in the back lots, you might say, and to come up with some features over a period of time that they built up um, to to be able to literally out roast the live action and the movie and the television programs that were being brought out through Disney, but it took time to grow. And same, it
Yeah.
just took time for us young animators to build and to grow into seasoned animators and being able to harness stronger stories. Because nothing takes off overnight. And we were just literally starting all over. And again, Cauldron was, they had big expectations for Cauldron. It was going to be the younger generation's Snow White. It was, that was what they were looking for, but it didn't pan out that way. But still, we went off the lot, and where we were, we turned out some very, very lucrative product and some memorable product off the lot. So had we not been off the lot, who knows what would have happened? We may not have the desire to succeed and to be pushed. As Jeffrey Katzenberg did a marvelous job of literally pushing us to probably to excel more than what we thought we could do.
Yeah. Well, this was just only a bump in the road, a stepping stone. We all have those in our lives. It turns out it was only just beginning. So next week, the Disney creates their first movie under the new management,
Okay.
entrusting two guys to direct first animated feature.
Yeah. Yeah. Speaking of directors, yeah. I was wondering about the Richard Rich. I mean, that name sounds familiar. Why doesn't he sound familiar to me?
I think he did the Swan Princess afterwards and all those crazy. Oh my god, you pump out so many sequels to the Swan Princess, which is insane.
Yeah, but that was like under the Nest Family Animation last I checked. So does this mean the style for the Black Cauldron movie was more of a biblical style than a Disney style then?
I don't know, but I mean, this is just one of those this is just one of those rough patches of life. I've actually been through a phase where I
Okay, I
to
get the some
vacation.
personal details here. So anyway, next up, the next question I have for you, Ron, are you still there? Okay. Yeah, we talked to Jerry Reeves last week, and he mentioned how there was like also like some creative issues that was going on with Black Cauldron as well, because he remembered seeing like the layout for like the Fro Frog being a much brighter background than it was in the final pick.
Could you repeat the question? Sorry.
Um,
Jerry
and
said that when they go into the underworld where the fairies are, it was really gonna be bright and colorful, like like unicorns and stuff. But turns out they ditched that, and it's just a dark underground place. I mean, the concept art was much more interesting than what ended up being in the final movie.
Yeah, that's yeah, that's Jerry hits it right on the head. But if you take into consideration that the picture was going in a particular direction, and it was going to be more, I think I talked earlier about um, the Fair Folk sequence where they were going underground, and it's going to show their habitations, their homes. I mean, everything about this underground world that the fair folks lived in with King Idleg. They had, just a whole world, and so all that was. I think I worked on the fair folk sequence for over a year, and then when Art Stevens, who was directing that sequence, he just retired suddenly, and so they put that the whole sequence on hold, and it went to another direction. And then you have, in the sense that it's no longer necessary to take that side trip, because again, it didn't progress the story, didn't give any more insight into the characters, so it was expendable. And
Yeah,
again,
yeah, yeah. That whole
just
story is
wording,
king thing. I get it.
repeating myself, but the bottom line is that they come in and they're going to have to um, do backgrounds and layouts in a hurry, because this is over budget. We got to get this thing done, and so they're doing these backgrounds, and so they change the whole direction, and it goes from bright and airy to just a dark hole to serve the purpose. And what's the purpose? Just to get them through and find out a place for the pig to stay. Right, Henwind stays there. And they go on their journey, and so it's just trying to get
Mhm.
it done, get it through, um, and it changed places. I mean, what real benefit would it be to have all these bright, cheerful layouts of the fair folks domicile, and they're not usually, you're only there for a couple of seconds, to the place for him to stay, and you're out of there. So what's this place all about? You're
Well,
not
anyway.
you're not really saying anything by doing that. So I can see how you just streamline the pipeline, get them in, get them out, and go on with the journey. I mean, that's storytelling.
Mm. Well, I was also
Yeah.
wondering if it had to do with like the special effects as well, because maybe the fair folks have like bright light effect that they wore around them. I mean, it did look like the expenses were like going to like more shiny light effects, even more so than what was going on at the Xerox days.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, this is well, this was could have been you know, sometimes I look at those flying orbs and automatically think of your little fairy companion in the Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time, who's like, "Hey, look, listen." It it's just
Yeah,
that
they still have those cute little fake characters in those like games, but I thought you were gonna go for Tinkerbell there.
no, Tinkerbell. I no, yeah, I know, but it was kind of like Tinkerbell as well, but this is still Disney, so they kind of had rights to what they were going for on
I get it. So, anyway, yeah, the other thing that at least I'm going for like one of the articles of like there's like several articles of opinions about like the top 10 obscure Disney stuff, but yeah, I have read in one of them that there's seems to be like a recent renewed interest in the Black Cauldron.
ooh, because I feel like if Disney is so crazy obsessed about doing live action remakes, then I think they should probably turn the whole Chronicles of Prydain into an epic 5 movie
I
animated.
don't think that's what I was going for. I mean, it's big. Yeah, I mean, it's like I think the flick itself is having like its own, cult classic center.
Yeah. Oh.
But
Oh
I mean, it
yeah.
could be like a number of reasons. I've seen this before with like the low budget horror games. Yeah, man. Yeah, some going in for like the entrance of the art. Others going for like the humor with with their own riffing. And there's rights and wrong ways to watch it, and yet they still do it anyway.
Yeah, I can envision a Lord of the Rings style five-parter with the Chronicles of Prydain that they could that Disney could pull off with their vast amounts of money and such. Because
Well,
Peter
we'll see in a
Jackson.
few. We'll see someday, okay, Jordan? So, but
Yeah.
anyway, I do have one more question for Ron.
Okay.
Yeah. What's like the weirdest thing you've ever done for animation?
Okay, what was the go ahead?
The weirdest. I mean, I know it's kind of like a broad opinion, but I mean, cartoons can do crazy things. So, yeah, what's like the weirdest thing you ever like, contributed to the animation?
Wow, that's a hard one. Weird, weird. It depends on the
Well, I mean,
character. Yeah,
well, I mean, if it's like, something incredible like you've done in the past, you can just, give an example of that.
yeah, yeah. I don't know if I can even attempt to answer that. Because everything you do is um, calculated and planned out and thumbnail to death and done and redone. So there's you iron out all the weirdness. Because if it's weird to the audience, then you haven't really done your job. It has to be
Oh
enjoyable.
man.
It's got to be enjoyable. It has to be entertaining. It has to fit its purpose in the story. So all that is just really, like I said, you iron out all the weirdness. This doesn't look right. This doesn't animate right. This doesn't feel right for the flow of the story. So all that weirdness is ironed out in the process before it gets to the screen.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's one of the best answers I've heard. So, but anyway, I need to get going and get my own dinner here.
Well, the lie is gonna get only just beginning for these next generation of animators because we were
Great
about to
capping.
suddenly progress into classics territory. Great stuff. So we'll get to that next week with the debut feature of Ron Clements and John Musker. Okay.
Yeah,
Well,
okay, I
talk
gotta
to you
go.
later.
Nice seeing you, Ron.
Thank you, Miss Sarah. Okay, Jordan,
Bye.
take care.
Bye.